The human AI collaboration alternatives are relatively limited. You could find applications in effectively any department in the company, but the accuracy isn't enough. That task division of the job is designed with the human limitations, and AI models have very different limitations.
Last year was a very busy year, 2025, because of course you work on AI related topics. And I know, of course, also from my own experience in the course, the AI for Executives course, that you were doing a lot of very practical interactions also with senior executives. Why don't you just give a very quick overview what your work is right now in that space of AI and business, let's say broadly defined?
We have a continuous stream of developments, research findings, innovations. And what I've kind of seen as my role is to really try to, in a practical way and in a research way, to sort of make sense of that, try to put that into frameworks that can be easily explained to executives and also created as sort of research frameworks on which to build.
Great. Why don't we then dive into that for a little bit? What do you tell people now when they ask you, how do I need to think about AI sort of in general and then specifically for organizations?
The key thing that we use now to explain AI, both in sort of casual conversations as well as in the classroom, is that AI models are models, and we can understand them like we can understand any other model. And we've had decades of thinking about models and theories and so on. And we know from all of that thinking that sort of any theory, any model has to have trade-offs. You can have a model that is very general, explains a lot. You can have a model that is very accurate, and you can have a model that is very simple. You cannot have all three at once. So what we were trying to sort of make sense of this is that the AI models like GPT 5.2 now or Claude 4.5 appear to be, getting increasingly accurate. And from the beginning, the big part of the attraction of ChatGPT was that it was very general. You could do lots of things with it. And yet it appears to be very simple. It's just a chat box. But sort of the key to understand this was that all of the model, in fact, is extremely complex in the order of a trillion parameters in a very complicated internal structure. But all of that complexity is hidden behind this interface. And it's effectively, from your perspective, outsourced to somebody else. You're not in control of that. Okay, so once you start thinking about this from a company's perspective, you realize that it's very general. You could find applications in effectively any department in the company, but the accuracy isn't enough. It cannot actually do accurately enough any meaningful corporate task. From a company's perspective, the challenge is like, what do you do to take a very general model and turn it into something that is more accurate in a particular application? What you practically do is you build a stack of things on top of the model. Like if we take the legal sector as an example, Harvey is a company that takes the latest OpenAI model, GPT-5, for instance, and fine-tunes it with legal materials, which makes it more accurate, better suited for legal use, but also narrows the generality. So now we're moving from a more general model to a more specific model in the legal sector. That model, Harvey model, is not very good for marketing or finance. It is specific now to the legal sector, but it's pretty general within the context of the law. Now, for any given law firm, then on top of that, you want to probably work in the context of your deals. You give it what we call context. You give it additional information beyond your query, your prompt. You build on top of a generalist model and progressively make it more accurate, but more specific, more focused for your use case. This has a couple practical implications. The complexity of the task didn't disappear. This is so-called Tesler's law, is that complexity can only be reallocated. It does not disappear. If the task is complex, a model to be accurate in that context has to be complex. And so if it appears simple to me, that complexity has to go somewhere else. Part of that has gone to OpenAI or Anthropic or whoever did the fundamental model, and we then effectively outsource that and we pay for that. Part of that goes to the internal team who's building all the RAG systems and everything else. In building this stack, any corporation effectively has to understand how do you allocate the complexity, which part of that system stay in-house in our company, which parts we outsource. And at this point, those foundation models, for instance, are so complicated, so big, that it's very hard for any company to do those internally. So we generally, most use cases, almost all use cases these days, outsource that, building a stack on top of that.
Maybe one last word I would like to ask you is about, once you have the right system or you have an idea of how to get the system, other practical questions around AI adoption. Many people ask, how do you actually do it? What does it actually mean? And I have you heard talk quite a bit about what looks like a technological issue very quickly becomes a question of implementation, of process engineering, re-engineering, etc. Maybe you say a few words about that, because I think that's also very important for our listeners.
The key thing to sort of make sense of this is that you cannot simply think about like your job, for instance, is divided into tasks and say, okay, these tasks AI will do, these tasks I will do. For the simple reason that that task division of the job is designed with the human limitations. I have cognitive limitations, I have attention limitations, interruptions, and AI models have very different limitations. And so if you think about sort of the same job done by AI, the internal division of that into tasks may look quite different. If you want to divide a job or a task or a process into the human component and the AI component, the key thing is that both the AI component and the human component have to be internally coherent. So what I do has to be something that I can do and make sense of it. And what the AI does has to be something that the AI can do and make sense of it and work well. And so this has a couple implications beyond what I just said. One is that the existing organizational structure is almost certainly not going to be ideal for human and AI combination, because that organizational structure, the processes were designed for humans. And now if we have AI agents doing part of it, those are going to require a different kind of approach. And so what we see now companies adopting is, rather than having like a departmental division where humans have capabilities, specialization in marketing or production department, you start thinking like in terms of processes. How can we do this process? Not a sort of specialization or not a task, but the whole process with AI. And you start thinking like, what is the human role here? And once you start thinking about this, you realize that the possible set of human AI collaborations is actually not huge. The human AI collaboration alternatives are relatively limited. One way to handle it is kind of this escalation. We have a set of conditions under which the AI will call to human. An alternative way is that a human sort of designates tasks and allocates them to agents and so on. Sort of human work moves a level higher in abstraction, and effectively the human from day one becomes kind of a manager of AI agents. There's increasing ways. Just as an example, instead of telling the computer what to do, you tell it that I want this output, and the computer keeps iterating, and then you just say, did you reach the output or not? Your job has become sort of set the goal and evaluate, and the AI model iteratively sort of keeps trying to improve. You don't even tell it how to do it or anything else. So the current focus that we see at companies has now moved to sort of really thinking about the workflows. How do you actively manage the human AI collaboration, and sort of precisely understanding like what's a meaningful human role, what's a meaningful AI role, and sort of manage that interface. We call it sort of building interface capital. Like, how do you exactly define the two roles, and how do you build that interface between the two?
Great. Well, thank you, Sampsa. We have to close here. We would love to hear more from you, but as this topic is also developing so rapidly, we should have another call in a couple of months and see how things are going.
Absolutely. Happy to do that.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Sampsa.